Welcome, everyone. Today, sorry, excuse me one second. Thank you for joining us today for this DASA Deep Dive webinar. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that all of you can both hear and see the slides. So if you're having any issues with seeing the slides, I'm going to launch a poll right now, and you can let us know by responding either that you can and you're fine with A, or B, you can't hear me. B, you can hear me, but you can't see the slides, and C, you can't hear me or see the slides. So go ahead and send your responses there. I'll give it just a second to make sure that everybody is able. Looks like everybody is actually able to see, but we only have about 60% of you who have voted so far. So if anybody does have any issues, just please try to log out and back in, and that might resolve the issue for you. I'm also going to send a quick message to people who can't hear me to also log out and back in. All right, well, I'm going to close out the poll. It looks like everybody's okay. Moving forward. Again, thank you so much for being with us today. Before we get started, I want to introduce myself. My name is Kimberly Betty, and I'm the marketing lead for the DevOps Agile Skills Association, also known as DASA. I'll be your host and moderator today, and if you have any questions during the presentation, we just ask that you would submit them in the questions text box on the right side of your screen. At the end of the presentation, if we have time, we will try to answer your questions, but it is possible that we will send those out after the presentation with answers. I also want to let you know that we are recording this webinar, so I will send, with the follow-up email, you will get a link to the recording as well as the presentation. Okay, so for those of you who are new to DASA and don't know what we do, I just want to give you a little bit of an overview for what our organization is about. So DASA is an open source, members-driven association, and they've built a competence model and accreditation scheme for DevOps training and certification. But now DASA takes a different approach from the traditional IT training model. We believe that companies going through these huge digital transformations really rely on a shift in the way their teams operate. But what we've seen in many of these companies that have emerged in the last decade or two is that they've found greater success because of the way their IT teams are organized. So they've created cross-functional teams who own their products and services from beginning to end. And when we look at older organizations that are trying to implement these new ways of working, it's not enough to just try and create these teams. These teams also need to collectively obtain the skills and knowledge necessary to deliver DevOps effectively. And so in a nutshell, DASA is addressing this need by creating the competence model and maturity models, which focus on getting DevOps teams to that place where they have the right skills and knowledge that will enable them to work together more quickly and effectively. So that's DASA. And moving forward, I'd like to introduce our presenter today. Mike Orzen is with us, and Mike Orzen, a little bit about him. He's the president of his company, Mike Orzen and Associates, in Portland, Oregon, and he's the co-author of the award-winning book, Lean IT, Enabling and Sustaining Your Lean Enterprise. He's spent the last over 20 years consulting and coaching with companies to transform their people and develop operational excellence by focusing on the areas of Lean, Six Sigma, IT, and operations. And so he's going to be sharing with us today on Lean IT and DevOps and how those can work together to advance the value stream. But before we move into his presentation, before I hand it over to him, we'd like to ask you a couple of questions to get an understanding of where all of you are at generally. So I'm going to launch the first question. One moment, please. So we want to know where you're at in your Lean IT and DevOps journey. So just give us a response. Let us know if you're just at the beginning of your journey or if you've already been working on implementing it for a while now, and that will help Mike to understand where everyone is at. Let's see, I have about 70% of you have voted, so give it a couple more seconds to see if we can get some more responses. Okay, I have 72% and I'm gonna, it's kind of leveled off, so I'm going to close the poll and share the results with you. You all should be able to see these results. So we have 43% of you are considering it, so fairly new, and then a smaller portion down at the end, we have 4% who have been working on this for more than 5 years. And Mike, do you have any comments on this? Is this a pretty normal distribution of people?
Yeah, I would say so. Many organizations right now know of Lean IT, certainly see a need for Lean IT, Agile, and DevOps, but quite a few are still in the planning stage, or they just have 1 or 2 teams that are testing it out. They really haven't moved to an enterprise transformation.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense with everything that I've seen as well. And so I'm going to close this poll now, and we have a couple more questions to get some more information from you. Okay. The second question, we want to know, are you actively blending Lean IT practices with your DevOps transformation right now? So let me launch that poll. And go ahead and let us know yes or no, and intentionally or not intentionally. Okay, I'm going to give you, we have about half of you who have responded, and I'll give you another 30 seconds to get your responses in. I'll give you a little bit of a deadline. Oh. All right, well, let's move forward. I'm going to close this one and share the results with you. So it looks like yes, so we have a fairly even split between yes, but not intentionally, yes, intentionally. So a lot of you are, and then a small portion of you are not, but no one is intentionally trying not to do this. So maybe there's a gap here with you don't necessarily, there's a 39% of you who don't necessarily know how to go about it, potentially. And okay. Do you have any comments further on this poll, Mike, or any?
No, I'd read it the same way. It sounds like people want to do this. Some are doing it with intentionality. Quite a few people are kind of blending it, but it's not necessarily in a structured format or something with great clarity, which is also what I see quite commonly.
Okay, and then I'm going to take you through one more poll, and then we'll get started with Mike's presentation. The third poll question we have is, so this is similar to the first question, but really we just want to understand how long has your journey been so far, and what does that look like? So I just launched the poll, and go ahead and give us your responses. Couple more seconds. I have about half of you, a little more than half of you have answered. Okay, I'm going to close down the poll and share the results. Okay, so as we saw before, this is a similar question to the first one, but many people have either not started or are kind of in the very beginning stages of trying to implement this in their organization. So we have 13% who have been doing it for more than 4 years. So any comments, Mike?
Again, this is pretty standard with the industry, Although it's interesting that for the companies that have been working in this, applying Lean IT, Agile, and/or DevOps for longer periods of time, such as 5 years or longer, many of those companies have mixed results. In other words, they can show some artifacts, but they would not be the first to claim that they've somehow transformed their culture, and IT is seen as part of the business and is fully integrated with the business. It's still very much a pressure cooker for IT. So it's good that we've got some early adopters, but many of those early adopters are still facing an uphill battle.
Yes, definitely. Okay, well, with that, I'm going to hide these results and move forward. And Mike, you can go ahead and take over.
Great. Thanks, Kimberly. I appreciate that. So I want to share with you a way of looking at really 3 components, Lean and Lean IT, Agile, and DevOps. And it really all starts with Lean. So we say once upon a time there was Lean. It was kind of the beginning of this whole evolution. And Kimberly, do I have control of the slides? My little arrow just disappeared to help me advance the slides. There we go. I see them. Let's see if that works. Yeah. So very quickly, we only have a few minutes, so I'm going to go over this pretty quickly, but we will follow up with questions. So when you think of Lean, we always start with value. We always start with how do we understand and create value from the customer's perspective. So Lean, as we all know, came from lean manufacturing around the 1940s. And the thought process is simply, let's understand and create value. Let's understand and manage what the value stream is. The value stream are all the steps that we take, good, bad, and ugly, everything we do to deliver a product, service, or information to our customers or end users. So whether it really adds value or not, it's still part of the value stream. Most importantly, how do we create and flow value? And if there's one thing I want to stress today, it's that all of these disciplines are really about creating and managing flow. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Where we can't flow, we need to establish pull. Pull is think of pull as a cadence or a pace of doing the work. And we want that pace of work to be equal to the consumer's rate of using the work. So whether we're supplying work to another department internally, or we're supplying functionality to an end user or to a paying customer, we want to be able to deliver when they need it. So pull is all about establishing that appropriate speed. And then, of course, we need to improve forever. This is a continuous loop. This really doesn't end. We start with value, but we continuously go around the circle over and over and over as we learn. So these are the core principles of Lean. And one of the things that I tried to do in the first book, Lean IT, was capture how we take these lean manufacturing principles and apply them directly in the world of information and technology. Now here's a slide that comes, I believe it's from the 1960s, and it's from Toyota, but I think it's so telling because lean manufacturing really comes from many places, but we'll get into details in a little bit, but Toyota pointed out that really there are 2 key pillars of lean thinking. The 2 pillars are continuous improvement and respect for people. And the base of lean thinking is all about learning. So PDCA stands for plan, do, check, adjust. And it's a learning cycle of experimentation. So we learn with small experiments. And of course, why are we doing this? Well, if you look at the top of the picture, it's all about better quality, controlling cost, shorter lead time, so speed, safety in terms of both social safety and physical safety, team morale, It's all the things that any organization wants. But when you focus on those two pillars, the left pillar really has tools. This is where tools live. And most organizations fall in love with the tools of Lean. So we love value stream mapping. We love A3 problem solving. We love 5S. We like visual management. Nothing wrong with the tools. We need them. But if I build a house and I don't build that second pillar, which is respect for people, which is really where I develop and foster trust, not just within my team, but between my team and other teams, and between IT and the business, the house can't survive. So when you think of Lean, think of that create and flow value, but also think of these two perspectives, continuous improvement and respect for people. Now, applying Lean to IT is really new. We don't have time to go through this entire timeline, but you can take a look at it later. But you can see that really we can trace Lean back to the 1500s in Venice. There's actual evidence of these concepts being used. But modern Lean and Lean manufacturing takes up most of the last century. It's really as I said before, in 1940, where we start to codify or capture these concepts with the Toyota production system and Lean manufacturing. The Agile Manifesto doesn't even come out until, I think it was 2001. So we hadn't really talked about Lean in an IT context officially until the manifesto. DevOps starts to be discussed, I think it's around 2008, 2009. Lean IT was published 2010 when we tried to capture a lot of those ideas in a single piece. And whoops, I'm sorry, I probably moved a little too quickly there. But what we can see is in the life cycle of Lean thinking and Lean manufacturing, IT is really kind of the last to come to the party. We saw Lean applied to office, supply chain, healthcare, service industries, banking, insurance, etc. And really IT is I believe in many ways the final frontier, or a very, very major portion of that. So you're all think of yourself as a pioneer, because so much of this stuff is really emerging conceptually. It's brand new. So very quickly, when we think about Lean IT and improving flow, we're really talking about three essential components: engaging people, improving process, and leveraging technology. The key of improving process comes down to two core components. How do we create flow? We do it by eliminating non-value added work, unnecessary variation and complexity, and overburden on our people and systems. How do we do that? We do that through applying methodical problem solving, which is the plan, do, check, act approach of Lean problem solving. From Lean IT, all of these concepts, this was basically the focus of the first book and what we tried to capture here. I know I'm going over it quickly, but there's a lot more detail behind this, of course. A few key takeaways. Lean IT is about understanding value from the customer's perspective, so we can identify what is quality and what is waste or non-value added work, structured problem solving. How do we front load the development process to test options early? Now, if that sounds like Agile and DevOps, it's because Agile and DevOps were kind of built on the chassis of Lean IT. Create a level process flow and start to introduce standardization. These are all key takeaways. Lean IT is all about a systems approach. So we don't take each of these as a standalone solution or method. We see the whole thing as a system, an interrelated collection of components, all designed for a specific outcome. Well, out of the concepts of Lean, Agile started to develop. And with Agile, what were we really doing? We were taking all those core concepts of Lean to create flow. So I'm sure many of the people on today's call are very familiar with Agile. We're not going to go deep into this, but if you think about small lot sizes, quick feedback loops, level load, visual management of the work, being in touch with your customer, understanding value, pivoting when you need to, being responsive to the customer's needs. These are all about improving flow. So Agile is really a wonderful example of how we can take these concepts and apply them in IT. When you look at Agile, there's many pieces to it, but if you look at each component of Agile, you'll see Lean deep within its structure. Evidence of value stream awareness and respect for people, rapid feedback and correction cycles, that's PDCA, breaking work into smaller pieces to create flow, applying pull through Kanban, and quality at the source is a key piece in Lean, and it's all about testing and knowing that the work is 100% complete and accurate earlier in the process. So testing code as part of the development process would be a great example of that. So Agile came along and it made a major impact. However, most companies that worked with Agile found that although they optimized or improved the development group, all they did was create a backlog of functional software that the business was not ready to use. Or even if they released all that software, they couldn't maintain it for many different reasons. DevOps really emerged as a way to say, now wait a second, we need to expand our view of the value stream far beyond the development group throughout IT and beyond. So a good way to think about this is DevOps, we had what we call the wall of confusion that lived between the people that were writing the code and the people that were maintaining and servicing the code and keeping it up. And we had all these different challenges that you can see on the slide. And a lot of people realized, now wait a second, can we expand or build on the concepts of Lean and Agile to really encompass a larger part of the value stream, both the development side of the house and the operations side? And since then, of course, it's gone much further than that to include security, for example. So if you look at DevOps, a great way to think of DevOps and Lean is cycles of learning. That's what this is all about. So you can see the DevOps cycle on the left of starting with our idea and developing that idea and releasing or implementing that idea. And on the right with, yes, but how do we release that, operate it, measure it, maintain it in a live prod environment? How do we maintain those two things? Well, a big part of this is really feedback. And the plan, do, check, adjust learning cycle is taking place both within the microcycle on the dev side and the microcycle on the ops side. But you could zoom out further and say this entire model is really a learning model where the entire organization is using rapid cycle feedback loops to adjust and improve. That is the key takeaway of Lean, and that is the premise of Lean. And again, why do we do this? It's to improve flow. So if you look at this from any lens, from the DevOps lens, the Agile lens, the Lean lens, it's really about, do we understand what flow is, can we create value, and can we manage that value so it does flow to the customer? Now, I've been using the term flow a lot today. What I'm referring to is the relentless forward progress of value to your customer, however your customer or end user or client defines value. It's got to be a forward progress. If the work stops, if the work waits, if we rework the work product, if we have to hold on to something, redo it, we have to correct it or complete it, that's not flow, that's waste. That's taking time, resources, energy, and focus away. So a great way to think of flow is to think of a river or a canal. That water doesn't stop, it just keeps going. If it did stop, flow stops. And flow is all about delivering value, which is our ultimate purpose. So when we think of DevOps, if you look at the material from any DevOps certification course or book on DevOps, what you'll see is it's more about creating a culture of trust, respect, and accountability. It's customer-centric. It's going end-to-end at a value stream level again, and we've seen the emergence of DevSecOps. We see that out there a lot now. This concept of automating everything we can is all about accelerating flow. And once again, we see the check adjust and the problem solving through the amplification of feedback loops, and more of an emphasis on flow with continuous integration and deployment. So really, these are the same themes that emerged back in the early 1940s when we first started talking about lean manufacturing. A great way to look at this from a visual point of view is we've talked about lean, specifically applied to IT. We've talked about Agile, and we've talked about DevOps. When we take those three models and we actually leverage them together, and we realize that they all bring something to the party. In many ways, the foundational elements of clear understanding of all of this is found in Lean IT. And I've worked with many Agile and DevOps groups that if they lack the foundational understanding of Lean IT, they got limited results in Agile and even more so in DevOps. The reason for that is you have to learn to walk before you can run. And I think the basic blocking and tackling can be found in the Lean IT body of knowledge. Agile is great, and Agile gives us some really good practices and frameworks, but it's not extensive enough. In other words, it's not inclusive enough. It doesn't move over into infrastructure. It doesn't move into security. It doesn't move over into the operations side of the business. And that's where DevOps really completes the picture. So if we're serious about creating and flowing value to the customer, we really need an awareness of all three of these disciplines. Another way to look at this is from a final lens, and that is, do we have a clear purpose? Have we engaged people so the people are driving and improving and owning the process? And then and only then are we leveraging technology to make it possible. So very important that we start with purpose, engaging people, improving process, and then bringing in technology. A lot of companies start with the technology stack, and we want to do that because we're IT. But the problem is, if you lead with the technology, you let the technology define process, then you have to bring the people in after the fact. It's very difficult. And if you haven't really agreed on purpose up front, it's very awkward to do so later in the process. And again, think of this entire process as a learning cycle of plan, do, check, adjust. Just that alone can really change a transformation for an organization. So we're almost out of time. I don't know if we have time for a question or two. I'll leave that up to you, Kimberly.
Okay, yeah, it looks like we're at the 30-minute mark or the 29-minute mark. We have a few questions. Maybe we can take one of them, though. Let me see if I can. Oops. Actually, let's, one moment, please. Sorry, it's difficult to see them on the screen. Okay. We have a question from Christian. Oh. And he wants to know, What is the difference between Popendieck's Lean Software Development from 2003 and Lean IT in 2010? I'm guessing this is in reference to the timeline.
What the difference between Lean IT in 2010 and what was the first one?
Popendieck's Lean Software, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correct, Lean Software Development in 2003 and then Lean IT in 2010.
Popendieck?
Popendieck, yes, there we go.
Yeah. So that's a great question. Thank you, Christian. So Mary Popendieck is an associate of mine. As a matter of fact, we had the Popendieck's review one of the chapters in the Lean IT book that talks specifically about Agile software development. And the difference between those two books, one difference is Mary's book in 2003 is really a deep dive into Agile practices. I think she does a pretty good job of talking about foundational Lean concepts as well. So I wouldn't take anything away from it. What our intention was to broaden that focus with Lean IT and to say that this goes beyond software development and really needs to include all portions of IT. Now, this is pre-DevOps. At the time, DevOps was just an emerging concept and really wasn't on my radar screen when I wrote the book. But both are really good books. All of the Popendieck books are I think, excellent. So I'd highly recommend them. I think the difference again is simply focus.
Okay, so we're getting a couple more questions coming in, but I think since we're out of time, what we're going to do is take those questions away, and we'll get some answers from Mike to send out to everyone after the webinar with the follow-up email, if that's all right with you, Mike. And
Sure.
Yeah, so just to close up. One moment. So I just want to make sure that everybody has all of our contact information here. I will add in the contact information. For some reason it's not showing up. But the contact information will be here in the version of the slide deck that you get following this presentation. So feel free to reach out to either Mike or myself regarding partnerships with DASA, or for Mike regarding Lean IT and DevOps and other related topics. So also, one more thing. We just want to thank you all for coming, and a special thank you to Mike Orzen for the presentation. It was very informative, and we really appreciate the time you spent sharing your knowledge with us so early in your morning over in Portland. And also, yeah, very early. So a quick note to our audience: once you sign off from this webinar, you should receive a request to take a brief survey, and if you would like, please fill that out to help us improve in the future. And also feel free to send me an email if you have any suggestions or feedback regarding this webinar or other issues. Other than that, you'll receive a follow-up email from me within the next week. And unless Mike has any closing thoughts, I'm going to close out this session. Anything else, Mike?
I would just say thanks for the opportunity. I know we didn't have a lot of time. If people want to contact me directly, you can just go to mikeorzen.com and you'll see a contact page. But I'm happy to. This is how we all learn. So I'm happy to collaborate and share ideas and learn from you as much as I might be able to share.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again, everybody, and I wish you a fantastic rest of your week. So we're going to sign off now. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.